listening to the Cycling Podcast Féminin, brought to you by iwoca. Flexible loans built for small businesses. Join 50,000 customers taking on life's twists and turns and scaling new heights with iwoca. If you run a business, find out more at iwoca.co.uk. That's iwoca.co.uk.
Hello, my name is Richard Moore. Welcome to the November episode of the Cycling Podcast Féminin. I'm with Rose Manley. Hello, Rose.
Hello. Hi. Hello, everyone.
And Orla, Dad Jokes Chennaoui. Hello, Orla.
Hello. How are we?
Very well. Orla, should explain that. That was a terrible joke that you cracked just before we started recording.
Oh,
Awful.
You loved it, really. You loved it. I actually banged my knee when I finished the joke, which wasn't good. I banged it on the kitchen.
Karma.
Are you going to explain the bad joke, or are we just going to leave it like that?
Go on then. Well, we count down, don't we, to starting recording. I'm notoriously bad at counting down.
So Richard said he was really bad at counting backwards. And I said, well, I'm really good at counting backwards. And Richard was like, well, that's not much of a boast. So I turned my back to the camera and counted 1, 2, 3, 4.
It was hilarious.
Counting backwards. And then I banged my knee as I swung back around again in sort of victory at my wonderful joke.
A triumphant return to the screen. Fantastic. Well, how are you both? We're sort of just at the end of the season, aren't we? Which we didn't expect to be in November. Well, there are lots of reasons for that. But how are you both, Rose and Orla?
Good. Just kind of recovering from what has been just a crazy, hectic, very most exciting bike racing you've ever seen season. I found it. Orla just thrived on the manic nature of it, but I'm just glad to be having a rest now. To be honest,
I am buzzing. I'm literally buzzing. I loved it way more than I thought even I would, and I was a bit worried that I'd be overwhelmed by everything, and that there would be too much racing all at once, and it might end up feeling a little bit flat, especially if the racing wasn't quite up to our expectation. But I was saying earlier, like the day of Flanders, for example, it was like getting to Christmas and just planting your head in a box of chocolates and just ramming all that sugar down your throat and making yourself sick and knowing it was torture. It was wonderful, and you just wanted more and more chocolate. It was just addictive. Like, even thinking about it, I get this sort of clenching of my stomach. It was just it was amazing.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Maybe I had one too many coffees, but it was amazing. I loved it.
Well, I had a flashback because I was in Oudenaarde. Not many people were, and of course it was at last year's Tour of Flanders in Oudenaarde where the three of us were there, and we made our little program, our little pilot program about women's cycling. And we made that on the Monday, didn't we? The day after the Tour of Flanders, when the town was very quiet. But it was like that this year on race day. Normally it's packed. Normally that central square is absolutely packed. Everywhere's buzzing. And it was strangely flat in the town itself. Now, that was obviously necessary for the race to be held this year. People were encouraged to stay at home, and they did. But it was strange. It was sort of very familiar, but also at the same time very unfamiliar. Just like the furniture had been sort of rearranged slightly in your house. It was odd. But yeah, I did have a flashback.
I wonder, in that sense, did it make it better actually watching it from afar this year? Because if you're there, what you're noticing is what's not there, and when you're not there, all you're focusing on is the racing, which was rather wonderful. So, usually I love being on location, but I really enjoyed this year just getting to focus on all the racing, and I wonder whether it was actually better watching from your sofa than the town square in Oudenaarde.
Well,
I couldn't believe how dark it was getting when the women's... Because obviously the women's race goes first, but I was on the men's race. I remember going with the Koenig Quickstep team back to their hotel and thinking, the women are still on these roads somewhere. And it's like, you couldn't even... There was no sun anymore, and it's just getting dark. I just couldn't believe they were still racing. But when you watch it on TV, you just completely do not notice that it's incredibly dark when they were racing. It was weird.
On that point, this year was the first year that the Women's Tour of Flanders started pretty late and finished after the men's race. And I spoke last week to Thomas van den Spiegel, the chief executive of Flanders Classics, and he said that they may well look to repeat that, because I thought that actually worked pretty well. Sometimes they kind of go to the women's race with a kilometre to go or something, the TV coverage. This year, the men's race finished, and then we could have proper coverage of the women's race, or the at least the last hour of it. And I thought that worked pretty well. So it sounds like that might be something that's repeated next year, which is good.
Interesting.
It seemed to work really well in terms of television, like viewing figures anyway. I think I still need to get my head around it. I really enjoy having the women's race first. So I think I just need to get my head around the switch. But it certainly seemed to work in terms of viewing figures, and everybody always says, there are so many caveats to the viewing figures, but there always are. But the numbers were higher than ever for the women's race anyway, so that's got to be a good thing.
Well, there has been lots of racing, as we said, so presumably it's a bumper news roundup, Orla. Some transfers as well. What's on your agenda this month?
And when is it not a bumper news roundup?
That's true.
I'll be running through Flèche Wallonne. Can you cast your minds back to that? Liège, Bastogne, Liège, Ghent, Wevelgem, Flanders, De Panne, and I always say this wrong. I call it Ceratizit. Just Ceratizit, is it? Is it Tizit?
It's hold on.
Ceratizit, is it?
I just say it.
I just say WNT.
Not for the challenge, Madrid challenge.
I think it's Ceratizit.
Ceratizit.
I think, because I kept on, when I was talking to doing the interviews for this episode, I had to keep on going through it in my head, and I still ballsed it up.
Okay, but, I will. I
think it's Ceratizit.
Okay.
Ceratizit.
No, Ceratizit is what you said a minute ago.
What did I? Ceratizit. No, it is Ceratizit.
Right. Well, I'll give it. I'll have forgotten it by the time I get there. I've got so much racing to get there first. But I will run through it fairly quickly, but please do butt in freeform jazz style if any of this triggers any memories of racing that you wish to share. Flèche Wallonne, first of all, Anna van der Breggen with her 6th consecutive win, remarkably making history there. Cecily Uttrup Ludwig in second, Demi Vollering in third. Liège, Bastogne, Liège, Lizzie Banks went in a solo break with 30 kilometres to go. She took the win. Grace Brown had a brilliant day, looked like she was going to challenge Dignan. She dropped the rest of the chasing group to get within about 10 seconds of Dignan, no closer than that though, and she finished second with Ellen van Dijk in third. Ghent-Wevelgem, or Ghent-Wevelgem, as I should say, was an action-packed race with it all kicking off in the final ascent of the Kemmelberg. 2 groups eventually forming, but the lead group never got far enough away to make you think it was a done deal, so it was a brilliantly frantic finish. In the end, Julian Dora won the sprint to become the first Belgian winner of the women's race, with her compatriot Lotte Kopecky in second and Lisa Brennauer of Ceratizit-WNT in third. There you go. Flanders then, a dominant performance by Chantal van der Broek-Black, who went on the attack on the Oude Quaremont with just under 20k to go. And a brilliant day for Boels Dolmans with her teammate Amy Peters leading home the chase group for a 1-2. And once again, Lotte Kopecky right up there in third.
Although I have to say, Orla, you did encourage us to butt in. That was really, it owed quite a lot to Anna van der Breggen, didn't it, that win as well, who jumped up to Annemiek van Vleuten and sat on her and just neutralised it. And they were all. I interviewed Annemiek van Vleuten afterwards, and we played that interview in the Grandest Tour coverage, and she was pretty okay about it. They had a bit of a laugh about it, her and Anna van der Breggen. She obviously knew what she was up to. She was trying to help her teammate. It did look strange, however. Anna van der Breggen, huge effort to bridge across, and then just sat there like a dead weight.
It was really intriguing to watch, because you're watching that. Annemiek van Vleuten goes in the attack, and already you're thinking, okay, if she gets any distance here, it's game over, end of the race. Then Anna van der Breggen bridges across, and you're thinking, well, that's definitely it gone now. It's between these two. And then when they sort of looked at each other and started chatting, and there was a bit of a smile, and we were all sort of scratching our heads thinking, what on earth is going on here? And then the pace slowed, and clearly Van der Breggen was saying, this isn't going to happen. You know, if you want to win this race, you're going to have to try again. But I'm here now, and I'm going to bring it back. And I interviewed. I didn't interview. Did I? I can't remember. Oh, it's all a blur. Anyway, Amy Peters. Amy Peters was speaking on Dutch television afterwards. That was it, and she was saying, No, it was Chantal van der Broek Black. Oh, my life. Anyway, Van der Brecker had said the day before in the team meeting, I'm here for everyone else. I'm here for the team. And they were like, oh, sugar, no pressure then. One of us has got to win if we've got the world champion working for us. So I really liked that move. I just thought it was really intriguing. And it was nice to see them both smiling at it. It was quite fun. Anyway, on to, where was I? De Panne. I'm quite sure we'll have a bottage or two in this one. The winner was Lorena Wiebes. After Julian Dora was first across the line but relegated for irregular sprinting. Lisa Brennauer moved up to second place with Lotte Kopecky in third. And Richard, me and you had a bit of a ding-dong.
We disagreed on this,
Twitter,
didn't we?
A good old-fashioned Twitter spat.
A spat. Yeah, well, I felt it was a very harsh decision to relegate Julian Dora because... You know, I think, well, this topic is in the news, isn't it? Especially with the news yesterday about Dylan Groenewegen being banned for 9 months for his move on Fabio Jakobsen at the Tour of Poland. And then we had it at the Vuelta as well, Sam Bennett being relegated for headbutting. And I felt that was the right decision. When there's contact made, I feel that relegation is appropriate. With Dora, I felt that she kicked early and got a bit of a gap and then closed the door. And you know, the rules are pretty vague and ambiguous, and you are allowed to deviate from your line as long as you don't create danger. Often in these situations, it's the rider coming up from behind who is creating a dangerous situation because they're sprinting into a gap that's closing. We saw Pascal Ackermann at the Tirreno Adriatico doing that. He made it through a gap and won and was hailed as a superstar, but it was a very dangerous maneuver, mainly for himself. And I felt that if you're leading out a sprint, and there has to be room in the rules for deviation, otherwise you wouldn't be able to come off a wheel to sprint around somebody.
When you're coming off a wheel, that's not yet your sprint line, is it? Your sprint line is technically when you have come off the wheel.
Yeah, but there's nothing in the rules about a sprint line either. I mean,
sure, of course.
All it says in the rules is that if your deviation creates a dangerous situation, then it's an illegal maneuver. I think what's required is a recently retired sprinter watching finishes, and because there are maneuvers that might look dangerous but aren't, and there are maneuvers that don't look dangerous but are, and sprinters will tell you that all the time. You sometimes see things and say to a sprinter that looked really dangerous, and they say no, that's not dangerous, but that was. And I think those of us who've not taken part in sprints at that level often don't really know, and so I think that the people looking at these finishes sometimes need to be recently retired sprinters. That would be my solution to this problem.
I'll just interject very quickly because I haven't heard Rose's take on this. My instinct whenever I watched it was that's a ridiculous deviation, because she'd come from the far side of the white line all the way across pretty much to the barriers. And I get, if you're in front, you get the right to do that. But at what stage are you in front enough, or, how many meters away from the finish line are you allowed to then close the door? Because you're closing the door. It's not a sprint anymore. You're just blocking everyone else. And what the UCI are trying to do at the moment, rightly or wrongly, and not rightly or wrongly, but however subtly or well they're doing it, they are trying to judge on the action rather than the consequences, and that's why we've seen people who've been disqualified without it actually causing a crash. And I think that kind of has to be a good thing, at least in theory. If Wiebes had, she had to slow, if she hadn't slowed and she'd been pushed into the barriers, then would it have been a dangerous manoeuvre? And then whose fault was it? You can't say that's entirely Wiebes' fault, because she can't stop sprinting just because Dora, whether she did it on purpose or not, but she's riding defensively at that stage. I thought it was the right call personally. Rose, what did you think?
To be honest, I can't remember what I thought at the time. I was just thinking this whole time, I was thinking, I hope I've written down somewhere what my thoughts were on this. No, I think I actually agreed with Rich. I was surprised that she got disqualified for that because of her being ahead. But yeah, if you're deviating from your line, then what can you do? Yeah. But I think, it's difficult because you have to have some allowance for, trying to take the best best line into a sprint. There's got to be you can't be just that everyone lines up at the start of the sprint and has to just keep in the, like horses racing, has to just keep in that line,
She had a clear line to the finish line.
Yeah,
she didn't need
yeah.
to take a best line, whatever line. Straight ahead was her best line. She took a longer way that blocked off Vibus.
But I do think there's been a lot of cases where I think even the sprinters themselves feel like it's being over sanitized. Like the art of sprinting is partly the battling, the elbowing, the headbutting, that's part of that kind of nature of sprinting, and that's why the sprinters that are so good are so good. It's part of the art of it. So I think that, from what I've heard anyway, I think a lot of the sprinters think that a lot of the decisions, the disqualifications recently have been a little bit on the harsh side.
I also, you hear track sprinters especially saying that using your head is legitimate, and that's not dangerous. And it's only really when it's the handlebars that are interfered with that it becomes dangerous. I don't know if that's. But then true
disqualification or relegation for headbutting isn't new either. That's happened for years.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I mean, as I say, I think that it needs people who know what it's like in the cut and thrust of a bunch sprint to decide whether manoeuvres are dangerous or not. The current situation is, I mean, Jasper Philipsen at the Vuelta kind of closed the door on Sam Bennett and others. Not Sam Bennett, because he'd been dropped at that point. I can't remember who he was up against, but and that was a very skillful manoeuvre to do that, and he earned the right to do it by being at the front. So it's as you say, Rose, it is part of the art of sprinting, but when does the art of sprinting put others in danger? The margins are very fine, and we're not always qualified to. I don't know whether Jolien Dora's move was dangerous or not. My instinct was that it wasn't, but someone else looking at it may decide that it was.
I tell you, just as a final thought on this, what will be interesting is to see whether it actually changes the nature of sprinting, and whether riders then, where they would have instinctively maybe gone for a gap, whether they're now going to cut short that instinct. And to go back to, to refer to men's cycling again, if you look at the last stage of the Vuelta, for example, I felt that Sam Bennett lost the sprint because he so deliberately avoided Pascal Ackermann, who Ackermann actually sort of went across him. But instead of him keeping his line, he was so determined, it looked like, to not have any clash because of his earlier relegation in the race, that he ended up losing the sprint. So whether we're going to see riders deliberately avoiding each other, which in itself then becomes a different art form anyway, and it's still going to be fastest to the line within the rules and within the ability to move around the bodies in front of you and around you. So anyway, we shall see. Moving on, I've got one last race. The Ceratizit Challenge, we believe, formerly the Madrid Challenge, which is much easier, but we welcome all sponsors to the sport, obviously. Not all, actually. Paule-Ka can stay away. Anyway, Lisa Brennauer took the GC, once again defending her title. Elisa Longoborgini in second, with Lorena Vibus in third. Vibus had taken stage 1. Brennauer had taken the individual time trial in stage 2. And Elisa Balsamo took the sprint on stage 3. And I noticed an awful lot of linguistic variations of the first name Lisa in the Ceratizit Challenge. You had Lisa Brennauer, Elisa Longoborgini, and it was another Elisa. Anyway, Elisa Balsamo. That wasn't so interesting when it came out.
Speaking of sprinting, that Balsamo sprint was absolutely fantastic, with a brilliant lead out as well. Because Lorena Vibus is very quick, and she seemed to have the upper hand, and Balsamo just, put herself on her wheel and came round her, which in very impressive fashion. That was a sort of textbook
I really
sprint.
didn't think she was going to get that. I really thought that she had left it just a few microseconds too late. So I was amazed that she got there. And I would have thought in kind of straight line speed that Lorena Wiebes would beat absolutely anybody, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought that too.
It felt like a bit of a coming of age victory for Balsamo. It was brilliant.
But also the teamwork, Valcar were putting in the teamwork, and it was good that paid off, which it doesn't in sprints, I mean, it doesn't always do that, does it?
Absolutely. So that was the end of the 2020 season, and Lizzie Deignan ended up topping the Women's World Tour individual ranking ahead of Longo Borghini and Brennauer. In terms of the world ranking, Anna van der Breggen is the number one rider in the world this season, ahead of Longo Borghini again and Annemiek van Vleuten. On the team ranking, Trek Segafredo topped both the world rankings and the Women's World Tour, with Boels Dolmans second on both. And that's the first time in 5 years the Dutch outfit haven't topped both the rankings. But a fitting final season for the sponsors anyway of that team, both of whom are, of course, leaving the sport at the end of this year to be replaced by SG Works. Other team news then. Some main ones that caught my eye, but throw in any others. After the folding of Équipe Paule-Ka, Lizzie Banks has signed with Ceratizit-WNT Pro Cycling for next year. Leah Thomas with Movistar, along with Annemiek van Vleuten. Marlon Reusser to LA BTC Ljubljana. Chloe Dijgaard is joining Canyon-SRAM on a 4-year deal to race for the first time on the road in Europe. And Tennille Campbell is joining Mitchelton Scott. And a final bit of race news: there will be no Tour de Yorkshire next year, as there wasn't this year, because Welcome to Yorkshire, the tourist board who helped to fund that race, haven't been able to commit for next year. They say with COVID, they need to focus on the immediate needs of the industry without committing both financial and human resources towards any activity or event that we cannot be certain of. So it looks like the future of that race is a little bit uncertain, certainly none for 2021. And that, I believe, is your news roundup for the end of the 2020 season.
You are listening to the Cycling Podcast Féminin, brought to you by iwoca. Flexible loans built for small businesses. Join 50,000 customers taking on life's twists and turns and scaling new heights with iwoca. If you run a business, find out more at iwoca.co.uk. That's iwoca.co.uk.
Thank you very much indeed to our title sponsor, iwoca. If you run a small business, or if you know somebody who does, and you want to have a look and see what iwoca can do for you in the form of a business loan, go to iwoca.co.uk. That's iwoca.co.uk. Lots of information there as well to help small businesses. And thank you very much to iwoca. They've been with us since March this year, supporting the Cycling Podcast, the Cycling Podcast Féminin as well. Now, we've got lots of interviews in this episode. Some big names as well. Lisa Brenner, Elisa Longoborgini, Lizzie Banks, Leah Thomas, and Hannah Ludwig of Canyon-SRAM at the end, with quite an interesting tale about driving to the Tour de Bretagne from her home in Germany, arriving in the car park of the hotel and finding out that the race had been cancelled, and deciding to cycle home instead of going by car. So we'll hear from her at the end.
Bit of a spoiler alert.
Oh, well, maybe
Richard,
we don't need to play it now.
A really interesting story that I'm just going to recap
The story, Rose. The story, Rose, is all in the adventure, all what happened once she'd made that decision.
Does she explain how she got her car home?
Yes, Rose, Orla, but I'm not going to spoil it.
Oh, okay. She didn't tow it there.
I'm not going to spoil it any further.
Like world's strongest woman.
Strong man style. Do you remember the
I've obviously already said too much.
Did you throw a log on the way?
I've already said too much. Well, listen, we're going to hear from Lisa Brennauer first. You spoke to her, Rose. I mean, it feels like Lisa Brenner has been around for a long time, but she's had a very, very good season. I think after a few years of, she would say underperforming. I mean, I interviewed her. She won the Madrid Challenge last year, didn't she, as well? But I spoke to her a couple of years ago, and she was really looking to change things, and she has changed things again for this year. And if you look at her season, it's pretty remarkable in terms of consistency and results. You know, not only winning in Madrid, but second in De Panne, fourth at Flanders, third at Ghent-Wevelgem, fourth in the time trial at the World Championships, and even going back to the start of the year, you know, 8th at Strade Bianche start of the year, August, 8th at Strade Bianche. She won the German Championship as well. She was 6th in the European Road Race Champs, 4th in the time trial Champs. So incredible string of results really by Lisa Brenner. And you spoke to her recently, Rose.
Yes, I did. I think, and it's funny when you're recapping all of these amazing results. It's but we haven't actually spoken about Lisa Brennauer, I don't think, all season, and yet she kind of quietly gets these amazing results. And I think also, even, you'll hear in a minute, even in her own mind, she kind of hasn't actually realised over her whole career how many times she's overcome so many challenges and got results when she shouldn't have. So really, really interesting to talk to her, and here's what she had to say. Okay, well, Lisa, first of all, I should say congratulations for your win at the Ceratizit Challenge at the weekend.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a great one.
Great to see you get that win after getting a whole run of great results in some big races, kind of post-lockdown.
Yeah. I thought the same. I was like, I'm always like on the podium or close to the podium, but missing this big victory. And so it's been great to end the season like that.
You must have got a lot out of lockdown, or what did it give you having that period off the bike to come back and have all that, to get all those great results?
Yeah, so, usually my off season is quite short because I race on the track till middle of November, then you need to do a break, then you have to prepare, and in February Track World Championships are already there, running into the Spring Classics season on the road. So this year was completely different for me, as I had time to actually build and train and lay a good base, I would say, which is super hard for me sometimes in the winter because the time is so short. It helped me, but I don't want to say it was an easy time because you were training never knowing when you had to be good, when you had to peak, and what races were going to happen and not. But I think that I was still in a lucky place because I could go out and I didn't have to stay inside my home. So for training wise, I could be outside.
And of course, you would have been, headed to the Olympics otherwise. So obviously, a complete disappointment not to be able to do that this year. But did it mean that you had a chance to focus on a road season when you're, in that part of the 4-year cycle when you're at your peak condition?
Yeah, I think that first it was a big disappointment, and I had to turn my head around. Like, I had to really realize, okay, Olympics is not going to happen this year. So I took a week off the bike, actually, to just be ready in my mind and my body to realize, okay, your big goal has just moved away a full year. But once I had realized that, I understood also, okay, what it could mean to me and what I could take from it. And I changed coaches last winter, which was quite a challenge going into a Olympic season, or not challenge, but maybe a little risk. And so now looking back, I think, actually, it gave me the time to get to know my coach better, him to get to know me better, and then go into an Olympic season already with some knowledge that we can use for preparation for this huge event. So I think that's the real big positive thing I will take from this season, as well as all the great results I did, yeah.
What was the reasoning behind changing coaches, and what have you got from that change?
So actually the reason was actually a simple and quite small one. So my coach now, Daniel Healy, he moved to Kempton, so the city next to where I live, and it's always been my wish to have a coach that is close by, that can maybe come to training with you, that you can see regularly, speak to, and also that looks into your eyes and can check if you're really good or if you're just WhatsApping you're good, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's this direct communication that I enjoy a lot. So I thought, okay, there's this coach with this much experience moving so close to me. It's a chance, and I knew he had a big scientific background and lots of experience. So I thought, okay, what have I got to lose, actually? I think I'm not going to get any worse at this point in my career. So it's only a big chance of maybe still getting more out of me. And that's what made me do the step, actually. But it all came with this simple thing of him moving here.
Have you got new regime, new training schedules? Have things changed a lot with your new coaches, or new different motivations or different focuses as a result?
It's not that huge things changed, but I think more the little ones, plus the extra motivation. When you're working with somebody new, you want to kind of do the things extra good and extra motivated to do the things fully right.
I guess when your coach is living down the road, then, you know, if he doesn't see you out in the morning, then you're going to get a call in the afternoon saying, "Where were you, Lisa? I did not see you pass by the house."
Yeah, things like that. But I like it. It's also this, you know, I can't even say, "Oh, well, today the weather was shit, so I couldn't do this or that," because he would look out of the window and say, like, "Oh, no, Lisa." It's not the truth. No, I'm joking a bit because I'm quite good in the training things. But he can understand really what I'm doing instead of just sending me out to do what he's written down. It's like the feedback can be so much more precise.
Well, that was Lisa Brenner at the end of what's been a very successful year for her. She ends the year 6th in the Pro Cycling Stats rankings. So, you know, again, one of the best riders in the world. I think she's sort of reasserted her place among the elite. And, you know, maybe a factor in that is riding for this team, Ceratizit, or as it was, WNT, which was much easier to say. And I met her a couple of years ago before she joined that team at the WNT training camp in Kempten in Germany, which is her hometown. She mentioned, Rose, there in your interview that she has a new coach this year who lives there, so she can't, you know, you said she can make excuses about the weather and things like that for avoiding training. Not that it doesn't sound like she's a natural kind of training avoider, but she... I think, you know, she's in her sort of hometown team, and it feels like a comfortable place for her to be. And somebody who's joining that team next year, we found out this week, is Lizzie Banks, who obviously presents Service Course for the Cycling Podcast, but she's also a professional bike rider and pretty good.
Pretty good.
She's pretty good.
I feel like you might have said that you, Richard, were pretty good as a bike rider. I feel like saying Lizzie Banks is pretty good is a little bit is a bit underwhelming, isn't it?
Well, that's the point. She's also had a great season, and she will really strengthen that team next year. And I spoke to her this week about, you know, the fact that her old team, Équipe Paule-Ka, folded, and she had to look around for a new team, and she's landed at Ceratizit-WNT. Well, Lizzie, the news is out there. Your new team has been confirmed. I mean, what can you tell us about the team you'll be joining up with? Lisa Brenner, do you know her well, and do you know many of the other riders well?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's confirmed that I'll be riding for Ceratizit-WNT in 2021, and I'm really delighted, to be honest. When they first approached me, they really came to me with a vision that was totally in line with the vision that I had of, you know, the place that I would see myself in the team, my role within the team, what I wanted to achieve in the next year, and also potentially beyond the next year. You know, just because this is a one-year contract, it's not to say I would only be there for 1 year. And really, it's a team with so much talent. You've got the big names like Lisa Brennauer and like Kirsten Wild, but there is just so much more talent bubbling away underneath the surface there, and it's really about to come through. And I'm sure all of those girls are knocking on the door of great results. And I really think there's such a strong team for next year that it seems like we'll have quite a similar spirit and team dynamic to how I had with Équipe Paule-Ka, actually. And so the team has also announced another 2 new riders in Marta Lach, previously with CCC, and Lotte Hentala from Trek Segafredo. And again, there's 2 hugely talented riders there. You know, Marta has been really on the cusp of some great results, but she's been mostly working for Marianne Vos with CCC and Lotte is a proven sprinter on the world stage. I think there's a lot to be excited about. I don't know any of the riders personally, but I was teammates with Julie Leth last year in Bigla, and I know from her that there's a great atmosphere and a great dynamic within the team, and this is something that's also really important to me, and as well as great team management too, and all of those things really add together to be a team that I can't wait to join. I think it's great that it's a continental team and not a World Tour team, because it gives us that opportunity to attack and to go and make the race without having to be the ones with the responsibility of chasing things down, like the likes of Trek Segafredo or Boels Dolmans, soon to be SD Works, etc.
It seems like, Lisa Brenner, I mentioned, she is the household name, Kirsten Wild as well, but a different kind of rider. But Lisa Brenner too, a slightly different sort of rider to you. Does that also mean that when you look at the roster, you see opportunities for yourself to take on a leadership role? I mean, it looks kind of similar to the team that you've been on, in terms of there being no obvious, if you go to Movistar, you probably end up working for Annemiek van Vleuten. Here, you may well have quite a free role in a lot of races. Is that your impression too? Yeah,
I mean, I really think that the possible partnership with Lisa is a really exciting thing. So like you said, we're quite similar riders, but we're also quite different riders. And I think that the fact that one area where, one of us is weaker, the other one is a bit stronger, and perhaps my climbing is a little bit stronger and her sprinting is probably stronger, but that means that we can really complement each other. And we're also both riders that you can guarantee to be there in the final of a really hard race. And so to be able to have that dynamic duo is something it's really exciting. We've seen a similar kind of thing with Elisa Longoborgini and Lizzie Banks. They're similar riders, but where one has a weakness, the other has a strength. But yeah, totally. I mean, there's definitely space for leadership, but there's also space to support other riders, and also just play the card of taking 6 strong riders into a race and seeing what you can do. And of course, Lisa and Kirsten will also have track focuses next year, so I hope there'll be an opportunity for us to work together, but then also it creates opportunities for leadership. And of course, that's something I want, but that's not something that I only want. I also want to play a team role, because, one of the things that I can do best is supporting. Like, I've been an excellent domestique for Michaela, say, in the Giro Rosa, and being able to kind of take that team captain role on the road and call the shots a bit on the road and direct the girls and make them understand where to use their energy and where not, and bring them together into the final. That was really a key part of my role in the team this year too, and that's something that I think I can take with me to Ceratizit-WNT. And I think there's a real chance that we're going to be up there in a lot of the races next year, and just it's a really, really strong team.
I mean, it means that I'll not be able to avoid saying Ceratizit next year. We'll no doubt be talking about you and your races. What are your ambitions next year? I mean, I wanted to ask you as well, you were pretty deflated with what happened to Équipe Paule-Ka, understandably so. Has the enthusiasm returned? Are you feeling pretty motivated for next year? And what are your main ambitions next year? It is an Olympic year as well, of course.
Yeah, I mean, of course I was deflated. The whole situation was a total disaster, and it was a very stressful period trying to find a team at a time when every team bar one of the World Tour teams had filled their roster pretty much. And so, you're trying to find a team in a year where there's a global pandemic and we're on the verge of a huge recession, and trying to find a team when they're all full is hard enough in a normal year, let alone in this exceptional year, 2020. So really, all the teams were incredibly accommodating for all of us, because you've got to remember, it's not just me who was looking for a team. There were seven good riders who were in contract for next year who were trying to find a team. And so that really meant that there was a real jigsaw puzzle of kind of which rider fitted in where, and which riders' goals aligned with which team's goals, and which riders preferred which equipment, and there's just so many little things that you've got to sort out. It's not as easy as just saying Michaela to Trek, blah blah blah. That is may or may not be where she's going. I'll leave the spoilers for later, but you know what I mean. It's not just as easy as saying this rider goes there, this rider goes there. There's so many different factors. For me, my goals, the Tour de Yorkshire was a big one, but we've seen today that it's on hold for 2021, and And yeah, it's really a big question mark over that race with what's going to happen in the future. But I really, really do hope we see that race back in the future, because it's such an incredible race. You know, the atmosphere there is like no other. So yeah, I mean, of course, it's a huge goal to make Olympic selection, and it is not my only goal, though. You know, there's much more to life than the Olympics, and there are so many incredible, hard, exciting races on our calendar that I want to target. And of course, the spring races being some of those, and especially, you know, Strade Bianche in the spring. This year, Strade Bianche being 40 degrees and having come from the UK it was a bit of a shock to the system. But I think a March race is far better suited to me, and it's definitely a parkour that I really like and I really relish. And again, you know, races like Omloop, races like Flanders, which Flanders I've never got to race. I couldn't race last year because of concussion. I couldn't race this spring because of the coronavirus break, and I was unable to race this October because my team folded. So it seems like luck is against me on that race, but for sure it's one that suits my capabilities, and one that I really want to see what I can do.
So that was Lizzie Banks, who has found herself a new team after the collapse of Équipe Paule-Ka. And I think we all sort of joined in the mourning of the demise of that project for so many reasons. For the fact, I think that, I mean, I certainly was so delighted to have a fashion brand on board and to see what they were going to be able to do with it. And even speaking to some of the riders, they've been told there was a fashion shoot that had been planned, you know, and they were going to do something really fun with the clothes, and just to see what kind of an image it would bring to and other sponsors it would attract to the sport. But anyway, 'twas not to be. The company itself has folded now. It's gone into administration, so that explains why the cycling team had to stop. So Paule-Ka, the fashion brand, is looking for new investment. But most of the riders and most of the team have managed to find something, if not all. I'm not sure now if there are any outstanding. But Leah Thomas was one who I caught up with, because she was joining Movistar alongside Annemiek van Vleuten. So I spoke to her after that was announced, and she was very happy about her new direction, as well as, of course, sad about the end of her old team. But here's what she had to say. First of all, congratulations on the new contract. Leah, talk us through, I guess, what happens in that horrible, very mercifully rare situation where your team collapses mid-season and you suddenly have to find yourself with a new spot for next year.
I'm really excited to be with Movistar for the next season. I think it's a really well-organized team. I think the management is great, and I'm really excited to work with my new teammates to produce some solid results. That said, you know, I was supposed to be racing for a different team next year, and I really got along well with my teammates, and what made our team special was our ability to really sacrifice for one another and really go all in to a team result. You know, that we weren't the strongest team on paper, and we had solid results throughout the whole season. And so to have that taken away really unexpectedly was a little bit hard to stomach. And then you throw in that it's at the very end of the season where, you know, most teams have their rosters finalized and their budgets set, and you've had these good results, and you're like, well, where do I go, you know? And again, I feel really fortunate that I get to end up at Movistar. It's a team I've looked at for a couple of years now, and it has never quite worked out. And so to be able to be a part of their roster, I think, is a really good thing, and I'm really grateful and really excited for the coming season.
Was it panic whenever you heard the confirmed situation with Paule-Ka? Did you panic about it?
You know, it's interesting. I actually didn't really ever panic. I don't really know why. I don't know if it's because I was already back in the U.S. at that point and had some other things going on, and it was just kind of like, you know, I can do what I can, and all I can do is put my best foot forward and, you know, talk to these teams, and wherever I end up is where I end up. It's kind of out of my control. I don't know if that kind of played a role in it. There's definitely days where I was a little nervous, but I would never say I felt panicked this time around. Hopefully I don't have to do it again, though.
Yeah, let's not talk about this time around. We'll hope there won't be a next time around.
Exactly.
This might seem a bit strange, but do you think the fact that it came in pandemic year almost helped in a way, in the sense that we've become very quickly accustomed to expecting the unexpected, and I guess things that would have completely thrown our worlds out of balance 6-10 months ago you kind of have to go roll with the punches these days. Did that help in any way, do you think, that we're used to the unexpected?
That's a really interesting perspective. I think it definitely helped me as a rider. But that said, I've always kind of been, like, one of my goals as an athlete as I have progressed through this sport, and like a mindset I've always wanted to continue to adopt and to work on, was really figuring out what are the things I can control, how do I control them, and then what are the things I can't control, and how do I just let them go? And when things change out from under you, how do you adjust quickly on your feet? So that's something I've kind of already been, have always worked on and have always tried to practice. So for me, I think that probably helped because the pandemic heightened it, but it was kind of something I'd always done. I think in terms of management, that could be true. You know, teams are used to having everything set, everything orderly, everything organized and ready to go. And this year, you know, I think teams are looking at, as things change, what's my next opportunity to build my team and make it stronger and make it better. And I think that, yeah, the pandemic might have changed the mindset a little bit in that way.
So how do you start with the team now then? You're back home in the US, and I guess we still have varying levels of travel restrictions and other kinds of restrictions. So how do you get to meet the team and have your first training camp, or what's the first step with them?
Yeah, we were actually going to have a training camp in early November and can no longer do so because of the restrictions in Spain. So it's a little bit of a play it by ear kind of situation, and whenever Spain is ready and it's safe to go over and have a training camp, I look forward to being there and meeting my teammates. I feel pretty fortunate, fingers crossed, but where I am in the US, things are really low-key and really safe, and coronavirus is pretty well contained and controlled, and so, you know, hopefully through the winter we can keep it that way here. So I feel like I'm in a safe place and I'm in a good place, and it's nice to be home, but that said, like, as soon as, you know, the opportunity arises to head back to Europe, I really look forward to meeting the team and really putting my best foot forward for the next season.
Chute à l'arrière du peloton, Cycling Podcast team car at the back of the pack, please.
That's the voice of Seb Piquet interrupting this month's episode of the Cycling Podcast Féminin to remind me to tell you that it's sponsored by Harry's Razors. I've turned my camera back on, Orla and Rose, so you can see my
beautiful
smooth face.
Are you just so masculine that you shaved this morning and yet it's grown back already, or have you turned into a bit of a slouch in French lockdown?
No, Orla, I just, I shave every 2 or 3 days. I'm not a daily shaver. Nobody sees me. I don't need to shave every day, so it's fine.
It's for your own wellness.
My own wellness, okay.
Yeah, but is it because it's November, Orla? Perhaps he's getting it all, growing all of it a little bit, and then.
Yeah, is that what you're doing, Richard?
No, it's not what I'm doing.
Because we've been told that obviously Harry's razors are for your face, aren't they, as opposed to any other body part. And it just reminded me of a little anecdote from here a few days ago. We were chatting to socially distantly, chatting to our friend outside, my female friend, who I go riding with a lot. My husband, who you both know well, asked her if she was doing Movember.
Oh dear, awkward.
He meant Stoptober. It's not even October anymore. But her face, she was like, what the hell am I doing Movember? So he massively insulted her. But maybe
and now you've amplified that on the podcast.
Razor.
Fantastic.
I'll give her one.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, back on message here. Thanks very much to Harry's. Harry's, I've just released their sharpest ever blades. I'll be getting them in my next restock, I'm sure. They've added a new lubricating strip for an even closer, more comfortable shave. And they haven't raised prices, so replacement blades are still as little as £1.75 each. If you want to give Harry's a go, start your subscription with a trial set, which includes a weighted ergonomic handle, their new 5-blade razor cartridge, rich lathering shave gel, and travel blade cover to protect your blades on the move. Get the comfortable shave that you deserve. Head to harrys.com/cycle to claim a trial set for just £3.95. You'll also be supporting our podcast by doing so. Again, head to harrys.com, harrys.com/cycle.
Marvelous as Harry's razors no doubt are. My friend does not need one. It was just a simple
slip of the
terrible
tongue
error on my husband's part. Just to clarify.
Hello everyone and happy birthday Orla. This is Lionel interrupting another great episode of the Cycling Podcast Féminin to tell you that it's sponsored by HelloFresh. Now, I've been a HelloFresh customer on and off for getting on for a couple of years now, and during the first lockdown it really came into its own because HelloFresh deliver boxes of fresh ingredients with easy to follow recipe cards so you can make dinner from scratch. You can choose how many meals you want each week, and you can tell them how many people you're cooking for, and all the ingredients arrive already measured out. Tonight I'm doing sesame chicken with noodles, which has quite a few different ingredients. So to make something like this from scratch myself, I'd need to make sure that the store cupboard was well stocked up, or I'd be going around the supermarket picking up a bottle of soy sauce and some peanuts and various other things that wouldn't usually have in stock, and then they might end up sitting in the cupboard unused, whereas with HelloFresh you just get everything already measured out. So it cuts out the thinking time, it cuts down the preparation time, and it also eliminates food waste because every meal arrives with the right ingredients in exactly the right quantities. I like cooking anyway, but since using HelloFresh I've certainly extended my repertoire and increased my confidence. So let's see how this one goes down with the family.
They're not.
What's that? That's noodle.
Pasta.
Bit like pasta, yeah.
Oh, noodle.
Noodle, that's right.
Noodle.
So if you want to be a hit in the kitchen and mix up the meals that you're making, you can try HelloFresh and get 50% off the first box and 35% off the next 3 with the code CYCLING at hellofresh.co.uk. So go to hellofresh.co.uk and enter the code CYCLING. Bon appetit. Back to you guys.
Now, on with the episode. We've got an interview now with Elisa Longoborgini. Again, for me, she fell into the sort of same category in a way as Lisa Brenner, someone who's been around for a long time and always very consistent. Always somebody who, when she gets some breaks and so on, works really hard. And maybe, she's not had as many huge wins as her talent deserves because she doesn't necessarily have the fastest sprint, but also because she does always work so hard in breakaways. But again, Lisa Longoborgini has had a great season, and you spoke to her recently, Rose.
Yeah, I think we always, I think we were saying before we started recording actually, we always think Elisa Longoborgini, feels like she's been around forever, but actually she's only, I think, 28, so she's not in that same category as Marianne Vos or Annemiek van Vleuten. She's actually kind of a generation younger than that, but that's just because she got some massive wins very early on in her career. Like I think she got Alfredo Binder in 2013, which obviously feels like a lifetime ago when you think about how many times we've had new cycling superstars come up and go away in that kind of time. But I think what has been for me the most remarkable thing about her this season is seeing her attacking and lighting up the races, and she gave me a little bit of when we spoke, a little bit of an insight into what was behind that and how the Trek team has been so successful with the wins of Lizzie Dyden as well. So this is what she said. It's been a strange season, of course, but how would you rate your season and your personal performance this year?
Yeah, it's been a very strange season for sure. I think anyway, it's been one of my best seasons so far. I would actually put it on the podium of my best season, if not my best season ever, to be fair. And it's been a roller coaster that I've shared with my teammates, and it's been just crazy. If I would describe my season in a word, I would say crazy. That
lockdown period, some people obviously kind of thrived in that environment. For you, it was kind of a difficult time, though, being in an area that was especially affected by coronavirus. How did you take that time to come back into racing in such good form?
During the lockdown, I worked pretty well on the rollers. We couldn't go out at all because also professional athletes couldn't go on training outside. So together with my trainer, Paolo Longo, we decided to first of all lose a little bit of shape because I was really in a good shape for racing. And then we planned some gym workouts together with some rollers or like turbo workouts. And in the end, I managed to do good hours on the rollers, or good hours of training in general. I had always between 18 and 20 hours per week, so it was pretty okay. I think the rollers made me stronger mentally and much more motivated to go when I went out on the road, because I felt like finally breaking out and having freedom.
I think that's kind of clear in the way that you've raced this season as well. Is it's not just the results that have been amazing, but also just it's been great to see you animating in the races, always seeing you on the attack, always seeing you lighten up the race. Was that a conscious decision that you were making, or you think that's just a part of feeling like it was a rare opportunity to get back out racing and you had to make the most of it?
I think that's actually my true self, to be fair. And it came out because I didn't have any more the fear of making mistakes, because in the end, if I make a mistake, nothing really happens. I would just lose a bike race, nothing else. Yeah, my true self came out, and I was just really excited to race, motivated. I knew that I had a good team behind me, and also I knew that I always had a card next to me to play. Like Lizzy was really an important card to play. Ellen was always there. So if I had always my shoulders covered, and I knew that those girls were really strong and they would have backed me up if I would have made a mistake.
And you speak about Lizzie Dynan there. I think a lot has been made this year about you two being able to play off of each other, in La Course, which I think everyone spoke about for absolutely ages, an amazing finish. But what is it that has kind of clicked between you two this year that might not have, we didn't see it working in that same way last year, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, when you get into a new team, you need a little bit of time to get to know each other and to start working really well together. And Lizzie was coming also from a pregnancy, and she came in the middle of the season. So we already worked really, really well at the Women's Tour, if you remember, because our victory at the Women's Tour was really made by the unity of our team. But this year we got to spend a little bit more time together, and we know each other better, and it was like a really good click. It's not only between me and Lizzie, it's between all the riders in the team. It's just an amazing group of people, and we are just really happy to race for each other and to sacrifice for each other, and it doesn't matter who is the leader that day. We just love to race for each other.
And what is it, do you think? Because obviously, we speak about Lizzie, you speak about Audrey and Ellen van Dijk. What is it that Trek Segafredo as a team has given all these riders that, have been on the scene for a while and have always been performing quite well, but have finally this year kind of really had a breakthrough?
Yeah, it's the trust that the team put in us that make us to feel strong and to feel motivated and eager to race. And it's just, I don't know, it's just an amazing mix of feelings and the willing of achieving something great that makes us to be so good.
Yeah.
And then on top of everything, we have fun, because we really have fun during the races. Even when it's hard, we enjoy racing. So that's, I think, what really makes a difference.
And for you, what would you say your highlight of the season has been?
Well, I have three, to be fair. Yeah, one was surely La Course, because it was really nice, a nice teamwork show. I really loved that race. another one is when we won. When I won, the stage at the Giro. I really remember the moment when I saw my wheel crossing the finish line, and when I detached my hand from my handlebar. I have this in my mind, and it's been really emotional. And the third one seems stupid, but is my time trial Italian championships, because I won a race that didn't suit me at all. And then I just remember this moment where I was a little bit in trouble, because in every time trial you have actually one moment when you have a little bit of more problems. Yeah. And I kept repeating to me positive stuff. And and in the end, I remember the last kilometer where Bronzini, my DS, was telling to me, do it for yourself. And it was really a nice moment.
So that was Elisa Longoborgini. Her greatest triumph of the year, of course, being voted Pedales de Charme for the Giro Rosa, her ride at the Giro Rosa, her first ever stage win at the Giro Rosa, which I was surprised to learn. She hasn't unfortunately got her Stacey Snyder mug yet, we learned. Rose, you asked her whether she had it. It's still in transit, so that's slightly concerning, but hopefully she will get it. Stacey has promised that if it doesn't turn up, she will make her another one. She lit up the Madrid race as well with a great solo attack, and finished second overall to Lisa Brenner there. But interesting what she said about her team and how they've really clicked this year, and it's been the first full season that she and Lizzie Banks have had together, I suppose. But would you say, Trek Segafredo probably the most successful team this year? Would you agree with that? Have they been the team of the year?
Yeah, I think they have. I think they've definitely, when they've been in races, they have controlled the races. I think what we used to seeing Boels Dolmans do, but not actually many other teams having that complete control over the peloton and deciding and dictating how the race should go. I think we've seen Trek Segafredo finally doing that this year. I think a lot was expected of them last year, because the roster of their riders is just so incredible. The talent, the number of champions that they have on there. But I think it's finally kind of clicked this year. And I think there's also a sense a bit more that I think when there's a new team that's built with a lot of champions, there's a sense in the riders about whether each rider will get their chance to actually shine, or whether they'll, even if you've won loads of races in the past, you'll end up just being a domestique. But I think they've kind of established that trust amongst the riders that you get your chance this time, and then it will all work for you, and then next time will work for someone else, which I think is key to any big successful team.
Yeah, to me, it's not just been the wins. They've had 12 wins this year, and that's why they've been top of both the world rankings and the World Tour rankings. But it is the way that they've won it. And absolutely, for me, the race that epitomised that was La Course by the Tour de France. And that it's one of the best race examples I've ever seen of teamwork. And I remember thinking afterwards, and I think I tweeted afterwards, that, if ever you've got someone who's new to cycling and they don't understand how it can be a team sport, and yet there's just the one person who crosses the line first. And Elisa Longoborgini in particular, her work for Lizzie Banks was just beautiful and intuitive. And what really struck me about that was afterwards when Lizzie Banks was saying, there was that teamwork on the road, but she was saying, she was hearing from Ina and Georgina in the in the team car.
That's the two of them together. Put them together.
Yeah, Georgina.
Like Brangelina, Georgina.
Yeah.
Super DS
reference. But that they were, they were advising her how best to beat Marianne Vos, and they know it because they've raced against her so recently. And they were saying, just be patient. And that's what she did. So she was listening to the DSs in those final 500 meters. She was following the wheel and the intuition of Elisa Longoborgini, and it resulted in one of the most brilliant wins. So that, to me, really summed up what they've got going on. It's not just that they can win, it's that they can win together for each other. And they've got that relationship with the team car, which is crucial. If you can trust what your DS is saying in the car, when the DS is telling you not to sprint in the last 400 meters, and you trust it and it works. And that is absolutely huge. So for all of those reasons, I just think they're a team that really, I find really satisfying to watch, and often you look at, for example, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, Lizzie Deignan won that, Ellen van Dijk came third, in La Course, you had Lizzie winning it, Elisa Longoborgini finishing in sixth. So it's not just the person on the top of the podium or on the podium. They generally will have someone else in the top 10, the top 12 as well, which shows that they're doing it together.
I think it was interesting, Rose, when you asked her to pick out a highlight from the year. She picked 3, but the first one she mentioned was La Course, a race that she didn't win. And obviously the satisfaction in, as you say, Orla, that team role, and the work that she was able to do to set up Lizzie Deignan. But you feel that at some point, she'll benefit from that herself in terms of a big win. She has had some big wins, obviously, but perhaps she'll be able to do what Chantal Black did at the Tour of Flanders, be the one that benefits from having a really dangerous teammate. In one of the classics or something, she might be the person who clips off, and the chasers don't get too organised because there's somebody else there who's maybe got a fast finish or something, who knows. But interesting to hear from Elisa Longoborgini. And as you say, Rose, she's only 28. She's still perhaps got her best years ahead of her.
Yeah, I think it's be really interesting with a lot has been made about Lizzie Deignan and Elisa Longoborgini being able to help each other because they're kind of similar riders. If Elisa Longoborgini is slightly better at climbing than Lizzie Deignan is better in a sprint or a fast finish. But Elisa Longoborgini even said, well, it's also me and Audrey Cordon-Ragot. So I think and to see Audrey Cordon-Ragot become French champ this year, again, a rider that feels like she's been around for a long time but has never really kind of broken through to actually, winning many races. I think that it's a really good sign that there's a lot of trust in that team that, people will be allowed, and they have the confidence that anyone could win. When you have one of those teams where anyone could win on the start line, like Boels Dolmans normally has, then, as we've seen repeatedly, it's incredibly hard to defend against them.
The Cycling Podcast Féminin is supported by Science in Sport. Science in Sport, fueled by science.
Thank you very much indeed to Science in Sport for their continued support of the Cycling Podcast and the Cycling Podcast Féminin. You can get 25% off all your Science in Sport products at scienceinsport.com. Orla and Rose on tenterhooks here.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't work on a delay. I've listened back and even I did a strategic. The last time I
have to do a solo
sing, and I did strategic. Ooh,
yeah.
And they were just coming in at the wrong place, and I sound very
maybe I should just sing it myself.
No, you've not done it.
One thing, the code was down for a couple of days. It wasn't working for a couple of days. We had a lot of emails and so on, but it is working again. Science and Sport. I apologise for that, but it is working for your 25% off at scienceinsport.com. Use the code.
No, go on, Richard. Come on, you do it this time. Go on.
SISCP25.
No, we're not letting you.
Listen,
no. Go on, do it properly.
I don't want people to turn off the podcast just before we hear from Hannah Ludwig.
No,
the
Richard.
young Canyon-SRAM rider who is a very promising young rider, very good time trialist. Just before we hear from Hannah Ludwig, one thing that I spoke to her about, she'd just taken part in the Madrid Challenge, and this whole concept of a sprint every 2 laps for time bonuses turned what might have been quite a dull criterium into quite an exciting race. And I don't know if we obviously heard from Lisa Brennauer earlier on, who won overall in the end, and Elisa Longoborgini, who really animated the race and ended up second overall. But the time bonuses every couple of laps did make the race very interesting to watch, didn't they?
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant and absolutely necessary to that race because, City Crit, I don't know, I'm not a huge... It's fine, but they're not going to be usually the best racing. But having those time bonuses was just brilliant, and I thought, actually, blimmin' heck, Elisa Longoborgini is going to do this, you know? It just encourages such aggressive racing and tactical racing, and it makes it interesting to watch because you're then following every other lap, you know, and you're trying to make the calculations yourself, so it engages you on a different level. I think it's wonderful. I'd love to see more of that. I think it's good, but it doesn't replace, you know, I would rather them have better race, or rather that first stage was a more exciting, more kind of where there were going to be bigger time gaps stage, and then they had the time trial, and then I wouldn't have minded a processional little, you know, city crit at the end of that, but I feel like just adding these kind of bonus seconds in on every other lap, it makes a city crit better, yes, but it's still, even with that gimmick, it's still nothing like a proper road race. I mean, it is, I think Elisa Longoborgini said it's like seeing a track points race out on the road, you know, but I have to say that most track racing doesn't really, you know, light my bonfire, to be honest, but I would have rather have seen something, a more exciting stage than what is effectively the men's processional stage, isn't it, at the Vuelta?
Yeah.
And they've just tried to make it less like a foregone conclusion, but I still don't think...
Jazzing it up.
But I think it works. I think it is a good jazzing up, and I think on a 3-day stage race you can't have a procession. That would be disastrous.
No, it's true.
And also, we're quite fortunate in the sense that the 3 stages, I understand, were supposed to be televised, and then there was a problem very late on with the whatever deal they had made, and they were able to then live stream the individual time trial on the second stage, and then we had the normal television coverage on the last stage. But it meant that we didn't really get to see very much of the first stage. So if it had been a fantastically thrilling race and we'd had the procession, for want of a better word, on stage 3, it would have been the completely wrong way around in terms of viewers and being able to watch the racing. I totally agree. The first stage should have, I mean, they said it was a hilly stage. Lorena Vibas won it, so it's not that hilly. I think they can do more with that, but at least credit to them for adding that third stage, which we've been pushing for consistently with La Course. So hopefully that's the start of something better to come on stage 1. But even with that, I'd still rather see the point system, I think, on stage 3, because I was following it, you know, and usually if you're busy on a Sunday, then you'll maybe think, okay, well, I'm watching a little bit of that. Nothing really is happening. The bunch is all together. I'll come back for the sprint. There's no reason to sit and watch it. Whereas at least with this, there was a reason to follow it all the way through.
And it was interesting, and you know, Lorena Vibas was pretty active in a lot of these sprints. I wonder if that just dulled her speed in the end. So it had an impact on the race, and Longo Borghini able to claw herself up to second overall, and at one point looked like she might end up winning, you know, which would have been a great reward for a very brave move. But yeah, it was interesting. Shall we hear from Hannah Ludwig? She ended up 13th overall in Madrid. She was 10th in the time trial. She's a young rider, just 20 years old, and she's the European under-23 time trial champion. She's on Canyon-SRAM, but she had, well, you know the story because I've spoiled it already.
Yeah.
But she drove from her home in Germany to Brittany and then discovered that the race was cancelled. So what did she do? Let's find out.
We just arrived and we drove 11 hours or a bit longer, and like literally when we were on the parking lot, the team chat said, oh, the race is cancelled. And then they were messaging, try to message Hannah, she's maybe she can turn around. And then I called them and said, hey, it's okay, I arrived, it's fine. And then my mom was in the hotel already, and then I told her and I said, yeah, you know, the race is cancelled, but no problem, I will just ride my bike back home. And then she said, no, you will not, I can't believe it, why aren't you sad the race is cancelled? And it was just really funny. And then I started to think about how long I have to ride every day, and did it.
Let me scroll back a little bit there. So you were getting there very early. Were you going to spend sort of a couple of days reconning the courses?
Yeah, I wanted to recon the first stage and the time trial stage.
And then when you heard the race had been cancelled, did it come immediately to you? Was it a sort of immediate response that you would ride home, or what was the first thought that came into your head?
I think it was one of the first thoughts. In that particular moment, it felt a bit weird, but it's also 2020, so you're kind of used to. Are you a fan anyway do you enjoy bike touring or, riding place to place like that? Yeah, that's how I got into cycling. Oh, really? So what, have you been on sort of camping and that kind of thing before? No, I started when I was 10 years old. I started with my school. They had like a 1-week trip where you would ride from one school to another, and it would be around 100k or a bit longer. And everybody would raise money to support a project in Africa. And I thought, oh, nice, that's a nice idea. And one week no school and just riding your bike, and that's how I started. Then I realized I like riding my bike. And how did you persuade your mum that it was a good idea? Usually she's always pretty easy, so she said, yeah, if you train here on the way back or if you train at home, it's okay. And she's like the biggest cycling fan ever, so she was enjoying it as well, I think. So you set off, what was the distance? 1,000 kilometers and a bit. I think 1,030 or so. How long did you think it would take you? First I wanted to do it in 4 days, but then I realized, okay, this doesn't work because I just can't ride that long. And then I said, okay, I'll do 5 days. So you set off, your mum, I think, sort of followed you, didn't she? Yeah, she was like, we met at certain places or she followed me depending on the traffic. Did you have a plan every day or did you just see how far you could get each day? I always had a goal where I wanted to go, but I wasn't sure if I would make it every day, but luckily I always made it. And then when I was maybe 2 hours away from that, I booked a hotel there. So it was realistic and I didn't have the pressure that I really have to. Did you enjoy it? Yeah, most of I think every day I did, besides day 3, I had a mechanical from the start that I couldn't fix. And then I had to ride with my time trial bike, and the first 20k were gravel on the time trial bike, and it was just horrible. I felt like first I'm ruining my bike, and also it was just so slow and so annoying. But then I found a bike shop, fixed my other bike, and then it was better again. I hope the Canyon-SRAM mechanics are not listening to this. Yeah, I hope so too. in the end, did it give you a kind of taste for that sort of bike packing adventure? It's difficult. It's been quite a theme, I guess, the last few years. Quite a few professional riders have been on these sorts of adventures, but it's difficult to fit that in with racing as well. Is it something that you would like to try and fit in as part of your, cycling in the future? Yeah, I think I always do it quite spontaneously, but last year I also joined my coach and Christine with the Thank you, Seb. Hello, everyone, and happy birthday, Orla. This is Lionel interrupting another great episode of the Cycling Podcast Féminin to tell you that it's sponsored by HelloFresh. Now, I've been a HelloFresh customer on and off for a couple of years now. And did you during the first do any structured training within the rides, or HelloFresh deliver boxes of fresh ingredients with easy to follow recipe cards, so you can make dinner from scratch. You can choose how many meals you want each week, and you can tell them how many people you're cooking for, and all the ingredients arrive already measured out. Tonight I'm doing sesame chicken with noodles, which has quite a few different ingredients. So to make something like this from scratch myself, I'd need to make sure that the store cupboard was well stocked up, or I'd be going around the supermarket picking up a bottle of soy sauce and some peanuts and various other things that wouldn't usually have in stock, and then they might end up sitting in the cupboard unused. Whereas with HelloFresh, you just get everything already measured out. So it cuts out
roads
thinking
on her
time,
trial bike.
it cuts down the preparation
Not
time,
one that the
and it
Canyon-SRAM
also eliminates
mechanics will have
food waste
enjoyed hearing,
because
I'm sure,
every
but,
meal arrives with the right ingredients
great
in exactly
tale,
the right
and,
quantities.
obviously didn't
I like
do her any
cooking
harm.
anyway,
She was,
but since
she was
using
good
HelloFresh,
in
I've
Madrid,
certainly
so
extended
in
my
the 3-day
repertoire,
race there.
increased my
So
confidence. So
maybe that's the
this
you know
one
maybe that'll become a staple of her training. Who knows?
Unlikely.
Okay, thanks, Orla.
Good night.
Yeah, thanks.
like
Okay,
pasta,
cheerio.
yeah.
No, we should wrap
Noodles,
things up
that's
for this
right.
month. We'll be back next
If you want
month
to be a hit in the
with
kitchen
more interviews
and mix
and
up
Christmas
the meals that
cheer
you're making,
is what we're going
you
to
can
bring.
try HelloFresh
No,
and
no,
get
it's-
50% off
Now
the
my
first
next
box
episode,
and 35% off the next 3
I want to
with the
see
code
sparkling
cycling
lights.
at
I want a mulled
hellofresh.co.uk.
wine
So go
or
to
no alcohol version, if that's your
hellofresh.co.uk
thing.
and
I
enter the
want us to go
code cycling.
full
Bon
on
appetit.
Christmas
Back
because
to you guys.
We're not going to have a normal Christmas, are we? So let's just max everything we can do as much as we can. Yeah? Yeah? Bit of Michael Bublé
whoa,
for the next
okay.
episode?
sure.
Wow.
I'm on my own here.
No,
I can feel it.
I'm just in a bit of a shock that I was thinking that was 2 episodes to go. So I'm just
No,
still
it's
in a little bit of
November.
a state of
Mid-November.
shock, actually. No, I'll be
Well,
there.
we're
I'll
not
be
normally in mid-November reflecting on the Vuelta that's just finished.
yeah.
there. No, I know. It's just
This
mad.
has played havoc with our normal kind of internal calendar, hasn't it?
Well,
I
I'm
think?
ready. I actually have a Christmas tree that I've had for 5 years that grows in my garden that I bring in every Christmas. So I'm ready for Christmas all year round.
Brilliant. Always prepared.
Always prepared.
Is that just a tree until it's Christmas time?
Yeah,
Like
it's
in the
just
summer
yeah,
when
well,
it's growing in your garden, is it just your tree, and then at Christmas it becomes your Christmas
yeah,
tree?
it looks a bit. I have to say, it does look. So the rest of the garden's kind of Mediterranean, olive trees, fig trees, lemon trees, and then there's just this Christmas tree that just sits there all year round. But then he gets his time to shine at Christmas. So
Everyone gets
There
their
you go.
time. It's like being on Trek Segafredo.
yes, every tree has its time.
Right, on that note, let's wrap it up for this month. We'll be back next month. In the meantime, thank you very much, Orla.
Thank you both. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank you very much.